Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we're breaking down the 2026 Florida U.S. Senate Democratic primary and what ended up being a very close competitive race that Democrat Angie Nixon pulled off the upset over longtime assumed Democratic nominee Alex Vindman. This is a very interesting race, very close one. We're going to break it down all for you in this video here today. So with over 95% of the vote in, the 1,246,067 total votes, Angie Nixon got 697,838 votes to Alex Vindman's 548,229. Now, this was definitely a possibility heading into this election, and if you saw my election prediction I made on the final video of this, I did mention that this was a possibility that this could happen. As we've seen this in a lot of races across the country in 2026 in these Democratic primaries, the farther left progressive candidates seem to have a lot of momentum in the Democratic primaries this year, and Angie Nixon seemed like another potential opportunity for that to be the case. Though after Francesca Hong narrowly lost her primary in Wisconsin, there could be perhaps a little bit of a sour, I don't know, what's the word? Not sour grapes, like sour feet. I don't know. Let's just go with that. And about could Angie Nixon actually do it? Alex Vindman had way more money on hand. We'll actually go to the U.S. Senate Democratic primary here just to show what it looked like. Alex Vindman had raised $14.6 million. Angie Nixon raised only $625,119. So a massive, massive advantage for Vindman over Nixon in the money. The polling, there's only one poll to go off of, that Change Research poll from the middle of July, and it showed Vindman at 34, Nixon at 24, with 41% of the vote undecided. And I did point out that 41% undecided leaves open a lot of possibilities. Yes, Vindman has the money. Yes, he had the lead in the one poll that there was, but we know primaries are very unpredictable. If 2026 has taught us anything, and that led open the possibility to a very close primary and one that Angie Nixon ultimately defeats Alex Vindman in a move that honestly Democratic progressives are definitely excited about, but sneak peek preview, a lot of Republicans are kind of excited about this too, and I'll explain that later on in the video in the general election portion of it. But in terms of Angie Nixon winning this primary, this is certainly her moment. This is her big victory over Alex Vindman. How did it happen? Well, the green is where Angie Nixon won, the blue is where Alex Vindman won, and let's just go through some of the largest areas in the state of Florida. The Miami-Dade County, Miami, Nixon won here 59.6 to 40.39, about 65,000 to 44,000 vote difference for Nixon over Vindman in Miami-Dade. In Fort Lauderdale and Broward County, another key area with a lot of votes, Nixon wins 57.2 to 42.7, again netting nearly 20,000 votes out of two of the larger counties in the state of Florida. Those are very big gains for Angie Nixon in these two counties. Now, it wasn't universal, though. In Palm Beach, West Palm Beach, Vindman does defeat Nixon here, 55 to 44, 57,000 to 46,000, a net gain of roughly 11,000 votes for Vindman over Nixon there. Going up the coast on the eastern coast of Florida as well, smaller counties, but a mix here between Vindman wins and Nixon wins as well. Get into Brevard County, very close one. Nixon wins 18,000 to 17,000 votes in Brevard County. Daytona Beach and Volusia County, Vindman narrowly wins 51.26 to 48.74. See in Daytona Beach, we just covered that one. In Flagler County, narrow win for Vindman. San Augustine, St. Johns County goes Nixon by about a little under 1,000 votes or so. In Jacksonville, obviously Duval County, very large city in the state, Nixon wins here and wins here by a lot, 80.28% of the vote for her there, Vindman getting 19.72. Back down to southern Florida, Monroe County, smaller, but Vindman wins there. In Naples and Collier County goes for Vindman, 62.93 to 37, about a net gain of 4,000 votes for Vindman there. Lee County, Fort Myers does go for Vindman, but not by as much as he would like, obviously, only 19,000 to 16,000 or so, roughly under 3,000 votes there. In Sarasota County goes for Vindman, 62.77, 37.23 out of Sarasota. Manatee County goes for Vindman, but now into a very important area for both the primary and the general election in the Hillsborough County, Tampa area, in Pinellas County, St. Pete. In Clearwater, Hillsborough and Tampa goes for Nixon by a lot, 57.5 to 42.45. Overall, roughly Nixon nets about 13,000 votes out of Hillsborough County in the Tampa area. That's a very big get in this Democratic primary. And you see across the entire state, she wins by, about 140,000 votes or so Nixon wins by. Tampa alone had about 13,000 of those. That's very, very important get for Nixon there. St. Pete, Pinellas County, very close, but Angie Nixon does pull out the win here as well. 38,600 to about 36,100, so about a 2,500 net vote win out of there. Polk County as well comes in strong for Nixon, 19,000 to about 12,000 there. Osceola County, 11,600 to about 6,500, so about a 5,500 vote win for Nixon there. Orlando, Orange County, obviously very large population city in the county of Orange County in the state of Florida. Nixon wins here very large as well, 59,000, roughly 200 votes. Vindman, 27,839, 68 to 32. Massive, massive win for Nixon out of Orange County. So we'll go to the northern part of Florida as well here. But look at a lot of these larger cities in the state of Florida that even if you're not from Florida, a lot of people will know these places. Orlando voted for Nixon. Tampa voted for Nixon. Fort Lauderdale, Miami, all voted for Nixon. Now, Palm Beach and Fort Myers did go for Vindman, so that's why it was more of a competitive race. Ended up being about a 12-point margin, but there were a few areas that voted that are large in population for Alex Vindman, but Nixon won a lot of these larger cities, including Miami and Tampa and Orlando, and won them all by pretty strong margins in each of them, which is very significant and why she ultimately ended up winning this Democratic primary. In Gainesville as well, it goes for Nixon, about 61 to 39. Jacksonville we already covered. Tallahassee, the capital of the state, in Leon County, 62.36, 37.64. Another win for Nixon. And then we round out the Panhandle, these smaller counties, but all still wins for Angie Nixon across the state of Florida in these areas. So bottom line to it, when you just look at the map here, it's pretty simple. Alex Vindman had a few wins in some population centers that have a lot of people, but ultimately, he didn't have some of the biggest ones that really mattered. He didn't have Tampa. He didn't have Miami. He didn't have Orlando. He didn't even have Gainesville or Tallahassee or Jacksonville. It's hard to win a Democratic primary, especially when you're not winning a lot of the big population vote centers. Angie Nixon did a very good job at getting the vote out in these areas, and she ended up winning by about 12% statewide because of it, and what is definitely a very impressive win for both her and for Florida progressives and the progressive candidates and Democrats as a whole across the country are definitely celebrating this, and honestly, as they really should be. Now, that being said, though, now that we know Angie Nixon has won this primary, and again, I cannot understate this enough, I don't want to just move on and gloss over how big of an upset it was, because again, she was outspent literally nearly 7,288,000 to 506,000. She was outspent literally 7-1 in this race, and well, she ended up pulling off the win. Now we pivot, though, to the general election, where we know she'll be facing off against Republican U.S. Senator Ashley Moody. The Senate race was held by Marco Rubio. Moody was appointed to fill the remainder of the term until the special election. Now we know Moody and Nixon have both won their primaries. It heads to the general election, where this race is a bit of a mix of safe Republican, likely Republican, and lean Republican, including an updated prediction from August 18th, 2026. Race to the White House we'll be getting to in just one moment. They now have it listed as likely Republican. Sabado's Crystal Ball, though, have updated it. Now they have it listed as safe Republican, so they've moved in the more solid direction of the Republicans since Nixon won. And again, a large reason being was what I talked about, the money advantage. Vindman still had roughly $7 million cash on hand to run. Now Nixon essentially is starting over from scratch on how much money she has. She only has about $264,000 cash on hand. Moody has about $8.4 million in a state that's a lot more Republican friendly now than Democratic friendly. It's definitely an uphill battle for Angie Nixon in this Florida Senate race, as the rankings do suggest, but Vindman had enough of a war chest where it seemed like the Democrats could at least be competitive in this race, but now it's starting to look like the Republicans are going to be more favored to win it than initially thought. In terms of the polling, there's only been 4 polls involving Ashley Moody and Angie Nixon. The most recent comes from the middle of July from the University of North Florida. They had Moody at 50%, Nixon at 42%, 2% saying other, 6% was undecided. Stetson University from back in March had Moody leading over Nixon by about 13 points. Emerson College from back in March had Moody up by about 11. And University of North Florida from back in February showed it to be roughly about an 8-point lead. So polling, we're just going to start getting some more in the next month or so out of this race now that we know the matchup. But Ashley Moody's leading them all 4 polls that have been accounted for thus far. In terms of some of the top forecasters I like to use, where they have it, the Florida Senate race, they haven't updated it yet, obviously, because it just the results just happened. But for Moody versus Vindman, roughly about a 7.2% Republican win for Moody. That'll probably expand once Nixon's factored into it, being the Democratic candidate. For the race to the White House average, Nixon versus Moody is now at roughly Republican plus 11.5. And I think I'm pretty more in lockstep with the race to the White House on this one. There's a few that I'm a little far off in their margins for some of their states, but this one I think I'm pretty much in lockstep with them. Vote Hub as well. They have Moody over the eventual Democrat by about 7 points. I think, again, this is one we're going to see it expand in the coming days by a few points or so, but all of them have it listed currently as a likely Republican state. And yeah, I'm pretty much inclined to agree with that as well. In terms of the overall odds here, you can actually see the Republicans are at 91.9% to win now. Democrats are at 8.1%, and it's actually changed a pretty good amount just in the last week or so. You can see around August 13th, it was 84.9 for the Republican, 15.1. Now that Nixon became the nominee, it went up to 92% to 8.1% or so. So forecasters on Kalshi as well seem to be pretty bullish on Moody's chances now that Nixon is the Democratic nominee. So no real surprise here for the Senate race in the state of Florida, where I currently have it. I have it listed as likely Republican, which again, I do utilize the JJ election map margin here, where it's 15 points or more is safe, 5 to 15 is likely, 1 to 5 is lean, 1 and under is tilt. I have it listed as likely Republican, which falls in that 5 to 15 margin, and I have it right around that 11 to 12 point margin of victory, like race to the White House does. That's where I have the Senate race right now. This Democratic primary win is definitely a big win for progressives, for Angie Nixon defeating Alex Vindman, but I don't think either Democrat was winning the Senate race, to be honest, but I think Vindman probably would have lost it by about 7 to 8 points. It would have been a smaller margin of victory, but for Moody versus Nixon, she'll get a lot of progressive Democrats out to vote, but I think a lot of independents will either stay home or they'll end up voting for Ashley Moody in the state of Florida, and that will end up expanding the margin to over 10 points for Moody once all these votes come in. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Obviously, very big win for Democrats, for Angie Nixon, for the progressives who supported her. Can't take that away from her. The general election, again, I think Moody's going to win, but still very big win for Angie Nixon. I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are. Leave them all down in the comment section down below. For now, though, that is it. Thank you so much for watching. Again, please remember to hit like and subscribe so you get notified when I post a new video, which I do every single day. And I hope to see you in a future video. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, I really appreciate it if you could hit like and hit subscribe as well. It really helped me and my channel out a whole lot if you could do that for me. You can see in the circle on the top left the subscribe here button to subscribe to the channel. On the right, there are going to be 2 video pop-ups for you. My latest video will be on the top, and a recommended playlist by myself will be on the bottom as well. In the bottom left of the screen, you'll see my channel name, Anthony's Election Center, which you are currently watching. On my Facebook, Anthony.ElectionCenter is also there. And if you want to reach out to me on email, anthpredicts@gmail.com is my email. Feel free to pause the video if you need to. If you want to look for any of these, obviously in more time, please feel free. But for now, though, that is it. I really thank you all for watching and hope to see you in a future video.